feel to the finally taking it. I really needed a night like this. I really needed to count my blessings.
Hey, and welcome to another one of these knowledge sharing tutorials where I once again try to bend the space between vector and pixel art.
Finally taking it.
This one thoroughly kicked my ass, so I'm gonna kick off straight out the door with that fact. But I thought it was worth chatting through some of the challenges that I faced as I was creating this artwork, because there were a lot, and as a result, this particular one took several months to work on. And if I'm being completely honest, there was a point where I completely parked it for a few weeks. It might have been a month or so, and I'd kind of given up on it. But never being one to accept defeat, I went back. But just know that this artwork had hands, excuse the pun.
Relevance, why we don't do beef, babe, just elegance, cause glasses are filled to the rim.
I tend to kick these off with a very rough sketch, usually done under the pixel persona, with some pixel layers or two. It's usually several, because I usually try to figure out the composition and try to figure out the overall layout and framing of the artwork. Start with the face, the frame of the face, the eyes, the eyebrows, and so forth. And you'll see me work back and forth between the pixel and designer personas, which again is one of my favorite things about the app. You know, just being able to take the artwork really far without having to leave the app at all. And so once I'm happy with this part of the artwork, like the face, I just lower the opacity so I can add more details to the hands. So I just want to draw the hands and frame them correctly in relation to the face. For the most part, the artwork is symmetrical. So once I'm done with a lot of the elements that are on the left hand side, it's just about duplication and mirroring to the right hand side.
Hope it works out better this time, but my feelings are valid, emotions get managed and it might flourish in time, but for now we're guarding hearts with diligence, moving wary, vigilant, stush vaginas militant, blissful nights in ignorance, glasses are filled to the rim.
So at this point, I think the artwork is starting to come together. I'm happy with where I'm at so far. Just a few things here and there that I'm still trying to visualize and figure out. But I think for the most part, it's starting to look good. It's starting to get there. The framing is correct. The hands, the pose feels correct at this point. Up until this point, and the things that will remain as part of the final artwork, I've mostly been utilizing the designer persona. But you'll see, for some of the softer details like freckles and just a bit of like some noise and grain to parts of the body, I will add those under the pixel persona, just purely because it's a little bit easier and it kind of helps me visualize or better get to the finish line quicker. Also at this point is where a lot of the contrast begins to take shape. You start seeing me work a lot more in shades of grey, where for the most part the line work I've kept all black, but then to kind of create that contrast and kind of create that depth and detail, I'll start working in shades of grey a lot more. What I've done here is I've put a mask layer to kind of erase or mask out the face, because I know ultimately I want the hands to remain in the foreground, but I do want the face to be cut out, almost like erased or masked out in certain areas. So that's what I've done here. So still under the pixel persona, I start working on the hair. Initially, you'll see from the green lines in the background that I had a completely different idea for the hair at the start, but I felt Bantu knots are really cool for this character at this point. So a lot of the time I make decisions, like as I go, I make decisions based on what I feel is going to complement the overall artwork, and that's what you're seeing here. There's a lot of adding details that are going to be complementary to the overall final artwork. So again, I have this vision in my head about how I want this to look and how I want this to turn out, and I constantly am working towards that in every step of the way, you know. And you'll see that in some instances I start to move a little bit away from the initial sketch and let the details and let whatever I'm doing at that time, they inform where the ultimate artwork needs to go in its final format. Again, it's starting to take shape at this point, so I'm still very happy with how it's progressing. I'm still very happy with how the artwork is coming together. I'm happy with a lot of the contrast that I'm starting to see happening on screen. I'm actually surprised I haven't done a fully monochromatic artwork, you know, like without adding color and so forth, just like leaving it at a point where it's just like fully shades of gray. Because I actually dig this specific point. I think for me, the next part where it starts to take shape, I start to add color is still, as long as I've been doing this, it's still by far the most tormenting part of it. And at this point, I jump back onto the pixel persona, and with my freehand selection tool, I make a selection around my face and my arms so I can create a base color, which will then become my skin at a future point, right? I'll then go into effects and change the base color to whatever I want it to be at a future point. Remember, at this point, the bigger thing is creating contrast as opposed to committing to colors. So from the onset, I was a little bit adventurous and maybe a little bit too ambitious as well with what I wanted this artwork to kind of look like. And you'll see as I start to bring in color, that's where it starts to be a little bit more challenging. And this is the phase, or this is the part where I spent a lot more time. This is the part where I kept getting stuck, that resulted in the artwork taking so long to kind of put together. And I had second thoughts about sharing this session with you. More than anything, it's more of a conversation and just my experience with creating this artwork, and almost like a behind the scenes look of the creation of this artwork, you know. And I think as artists, we can get caught up in, you know, our own way, right? And this artwork reminded me of that. It humbled me in a very big way, because, you know, on the one hand, I was like, you know, I have this really good idea of how I want to achieve this and what I want to achieve with it, but at the same time, for some reason, it was just a mission getting over a specific point. And you know, I really sat with this for a few weeks, and you know, there'd be times where I'd open Affinity Designer and really just look around and feel the intimidation and immediately close it, you know, work on another piece of artwork and kept it moving, you know. it's really reminded me, of the nature of the creative process. So at this point, despite feeling like I'm not really nailing it to getting it right, I'm still continuing, right? I'm still working toward this vision that I think I have in my mind, like for this artwork, and I'm still putting in the shadows. I'm still trying to implement all the contrast and the composition that I envisioned in an initial kind of sketch. So this is what you're seeing here. I'm working more and more on it. I'm adding more detail and so forth. But between you and I, it was probably like around about this stage where I'm like, I'm just not getting it right, and I'm spending less and less time working on it because it just feels like it's not heading in the right direction. I went on to start another artwork, and I think everybody can relate to that, right? I think there's that meme about how you have all of these projects that are not finished and you get that brilliant idea to start a new project. So that was pretty much me. I was living that with this particular one. I didn't get to the end of the recording process because again, I kind of given up on this, but I did want to share this with you and kind of like share my experience working on this, the challenges and so forth. So here we have the final version of the artwork. Very familiar territory from a color palette perspective, but I think I was a little bit too ambitious with where I wanted it to go. There's that line from the Cloud Atlas where they say sometimes you slay the dragon, sometimes the dragon slays you, So this was one of those instances where I was slayed by the dragon and then I came back a month or so later to try and fight back, and this is where I ended up. And that brings us to the end of the session. I tried not to make it too very long, but I also didn't want to speed it up so much so that you didn't see what was going on screen. So hopefully I found a happy middle ground there. Please hit like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram where I do post a lot of my brand new artwork before it goes onto my online store. See you all very soon. Cheers.